Hello, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday to you. Kindly confirm you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly by typing hi in the comment section so that we can get this session started. So I need some confirmation that my screen can be seen and my voice can be heard. Okay, thank you, Steamroller. Good morning to you. Thank you for confirming that. All right, 556. Thank you very much for that confirmation. Good morning, mate. I have $10 paid to use on a single day trade, and it would be great if you would give me the best. All right, I look forward to that. And it's actually been a while since I saw you. Trust you're doing well, Steamroller. And who else in the house? Okay, Lamil 404. Good morning, 585. All right, thank you very much for that confirmation. So I'm sure we can all hear me. Okay, and Kane. All right, thank you. I think we have quite new faces in the room, so you're all welcome. And let's get the session started. So I want to welcome you all to yet another promising session of Extreme Speed Live, hosted by my humble self, Sheriff Daramola. And as usual, I will be taking you on a trading journey in the next 1 hour, where we shall be evaluating the financial market, looking out for trading opportunities using technical parameters as we get ourselves prepared for the New York session today. So, and also, if you have any pair you want us to look at, feel free to drop it in the comment section and I will try as much as possible to inculcate it into my plans for today. So, without further ado, let's dive into the chart and let's see what's going on in the market. And one thing I also want to emphasize here is that considering the fact that it's a Monday morning and in fact the first day of the week, we are going to be looking at random pairs. We're going to be looking at trading opportunities, after which the following day we'll be following up on this pair. So I think we're all on the same page here. So let's run through the chart right now. I have a couple of pairs that I want us to be looking at, aside the USOil and the US Tech, which I have identified as a potential opportunity for us for this week. So diving into the US oil. So what do we have here on the US oil? Well, we'll want to scale up to the daily time frame so that we can see things from an holistic perspective, and let's see what is really happening in this market right now. Now, if we look at what is happening here on the daily time frame, look at the current structure we have here, we'll notice that price action has been on a very strong bullish momentum in the last how many years right now? I think between 5 to 6 years right now. Okay, since 2020, that's like 2 years now, we see that price has been on a strong bullish momentum after connecting the series of higher lows. So we have the structure here. So we have the resultant bullish trend line here after connecting the higher lows that we have here. However, if we zoom into what has been happening in the last couple of months, we will notice that the bullish trend line was respected in the month of September. I think the first week of the month of September, where buyers gathered to push price to the upside. And then during the later parts of the month of September, we saw a significant breakdown of that bullish trend line to incite that bearish momentum we took advantage of in the last couple of weeks. And what has happened right now, we can see that price is right back at that bullish trend line. And one thing we want to be looking at this week is to see how price is going to be relating with this bullish trend line. So in order to do that, we'll need to scale down to the lower time frame to see how price is relating to this level. How we're going to be having a rejection of this area where price might be going to the downside from here to continue the bearish signal that initiated during the early days of this month, or we could be having a breakout of this bullish trend line in such a way that price climbs right back on top of that bullish trend line to send price going to the upside. So these are the two scenarios we are going to be looking at on the lower time frame. But before we do, I want to share with you the structures I was able to identify besides the bullish trend line on the daily time frame. So the next structure I was able to identify here is the key level at the $85 mark. And if we look at the structure here since the month of August, we can see how this key level at the $85 area has been a major determinant of price action. We can see in the month of August it was a demand zone here, and then during the early days of September we saw it as a demand zone before we cited that breakdown of structure. Price though climbed up a little bit but was met with stiff resistance from the sellers as price pushed to the downside, leading to the breakdown of that bullish trend line. So you can see that that key level at the $85 mark is also a very significant level, as there is a possibility that if price continues to go to the upside here, it could come into the $85, rejecting that level, which also shares a confluence with the bearish trend line I identified here to send price go to the downside. That is one scenario, and the other scenario is that price might likely go up, break out of that key level, and in fact if we cite a breakout of that key level at $85 level, we definitely want to be looking for buying opportunity after a retest of structure happens with patterns on lower time frame that supports a trend continuation to the upside. So with all this information we've gathered here on the daily time frame, we want to see how price is going to relate with this bullish trend line. Remember, so we want to scale down to a much lower time frame where we begin to see things more clearly, and also we want to see how participants has been relating to that level since the beginning of the weeks, and this is going to help us in making a decision. So scaling down to the 1 hour time frame here, what we'll notice here, hold on, before I go to the 1 hour time frame, I want to share a setup here with you. So look at the 4 hours time frame here, and what can we see here on the 4 hours time frame? So on the 4 hours time frame, we had a scenario last week. We saw our price plunged from the $85 level. Remember, this is the key level we identified on the daily time frame. We had this key level broken to the downside, and then which was followed by multiple rejection of that level, and we saw our price plunge to the downside from that level. So we had this impulsive move right into the $77 area, which later evolved into a reversal pattern. As we can see, we saw rejection here before we finally saw the breakout of this $80.50 area. Now, one thing that makes this structure ambiguous is another reversal pattern cited here. So we had another reversal pattern cited here. Remember, we had a reversal pattern here. We had another reversal pattern at this point, giving us an ambiguous scenario. But it's not really that ambiguous because we already have a signal for the week. So right now, we have price breakout of the structure. So we have the $80 level as the neckline of the previous reversal pattern here. Price climbed up into as far as the $83 area, and then we started seeing multiple rejection by the sellers, which also lines up with that bearish trend line we have here to break down the $80.50 area. $80.50 area, which also appears to be the neckline of this reversal pattern as well. And what we saw during the later part of last week was that price closed right below the $80.50 level. Now the week started with a gap. We had a huge gap between here. Price closed around the $79 area, and we saw a huge gap of about 150 pips as price started the week at around the $81 level. So with the $81 level where price started this week, we'll scale down to the 1 hour time frame so that we can see how price has been reacting to this level. So what we saw since the beginning of the week is a scenario where price was caught within the channel first of all. That is, price started at the $81 level, then climbed to as far as the $82 area. Then we saw multiple rejection of this area. So this is what we saw at the beginning of the week, and then during the last couple of hours we cited the significant breakout of the $82 area. to give us a bullish signal. Now, a bullish signal coupled with a gap towards, remember we had this gap here. So we had a bullish signal here with a breakout of that $82 level. Coupled with this is more or less tending towards a bullish bias for the US oil for this week. And remember, as we cited that bullish trend, that bullish engulfing candle that took price out of the $82 level, we don't want to get too excited, as this is more or less a signal, and we want to be waiting for price to give us that confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of structure, where we want to be looking out for patterns on lower time frame to join the rally to the upside. So this is what we are looking forward to on the US oil. As price has climbed up, it gave us a signal of a bullish momentum. We really want to wait for that confirmation to happen, and in order to do that, what we did here was to bring out our Fibonacci retracement tool after taking into consideration this impulsive move to the upside. So what we want to be doing here is to run our Fibonacci retracement tool right along this bullish trend line in such a way that we identify an area around the 50 and the 78.6% of that previous impulse leg as an area we want to be looking for buying opportunities. So in that regard, I was able to identify a buy zone right within this area, which lines up with somewhere around the $82 area and the $81.50 area. So what this simply means is that we want to be patient enough to wait for price to come back into the structure here, around the $82 area, or probably within this area. But the most important thing we want to be looking forward to is a reversal pattern, which is likely going to come in the form of a double bottom structure, or it could become an inverse head and shoulder pattern, where we want to be looking forward to a trend continuation to the upside. So this is how we intend to trade this. And where will our take profit target be if we are going to be buying the US oil from this point? Well, if we look at the current structure we have here, and if you remember what we identified here on the daily time frame, remember we had this $85 level, which has been a major determinant of price action in the past. Let me show you one more time so that we can be on the same page. So remember we had this $85 level here. So it's a real significant structure here that we can be using as our guide. So let's see how price is going to play out. If price continues to the upside, we want to see how price is going to relate to the $85 level. How we're going to be having a situation where price climbs up to break out of that structure to continue to the upside, or we could be having a rejection of this level to send price go to the downside. So we don't want to be too ambitious here, so we place our take profit target somewhere around the $85 area. As soon as price does a rejection, a retest of the structure which we've identified around here, so we'll have our stop loss sitting right somewhere below the previous structure at about 70 pips there, about to around 80 pips to protect our position. So let's see how price plays out at this point. So that is that for any bullish momentum here as the week has begun. However, we can't ignore the fact that we had a reversal pattern here at the $83 area. Remember, we had a reversal pattern around this point, so we can't ignore the fact that we had that reversal pattern there, and there is a possibility that price could break down that structure in such a way that we have something like this, and then price go to the downside. But pending the time that happens, as long as price is still within where it started the week, remember it started at the $81 area, so anywhere right above the $81 area is still looking very, very bullish for us. However, if we have a breakdown of the $81 area where price started this week, in such a way we have a breakdown like this, then a retest to structure might be giving us a signal to join the decline right back into the demand zone where price was at last week at around the $77 area. So in the meantime, I'm still expecting that bullish momentum to happen. So we've identified a buy zone area or somewhere above that buy zone. Even if price does not get into the buy zone, what we want to be looking forward to is a reversal pattern on lower time frame. And like I said, it could be a double bottom structure, it could be an inverse head and shoulder pattern, cite a reversal pattern, then you join the breakout retest of that structure on lower time frame. So that is my perspective here on the US oil, and that's how I want to look at the US oil for this week. And so let's see what happens in the next 24 hours, and definitely we'll be coming here tomorrow to review how this pair is doing. If you have any question regarding what I've just explained so far, feel free to drop in your comments in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the charts and see if there are any inquiries regarding what I have just discussed before we move on to the next pair. So what do we have here? So good morning 842. All right, okay. Be mindful of the comments you see. They are not confirmed, and they are not confirmed by Extreme Speed. The only confirmed chart here will be from an Extreme Speed official. Hey 359, good morning to you. How are you doing today? Glad to have you around. Okay, Steamroller. All right, thank you. Okay. All right, in the absence of no questions, let's move on to the next pair. And the next pair we are going to be looking at today is going to be the US tech. And on the US tech, what do we have here? Remember, we had the scenario where price was within the demand zone we identified on the daily time frame last week, and it appears we begin to see a breakdown of that structure. But before we go into the details, let's quickly look at analyst perspective, and let's see how price has been playing out since the beginning of the year, after which we'll make a decision here. So the first thing we observe here on the daily time frame is that price has been on a very strong bearish momentum, and this is evident after connecting the series of higher lows here to give us this resultant bearish trend line. And as we can see, it has been a very strong bearish momentum. However, something interesting happened in the month of June. We saw a rejection of the $11,200 area in the month of June by the buyers to push price to the upside. In fact, it happened again in the month of July to push price to the upside, and as a result of this, the demand zone around the 11,200 area appears to be a strong buying niche for participants in this market. And what happened during the course of last week's trading session, we saw how price came back into that demand zone. In fact, this was followed by multiple rejection of that level, and during the course of last week, we were expecting that we're going to be having a bullish momentum to the upside here, but unfortunately it did not happen as price continued to find lower lows and lower highs. And remember what I shared with you here last week. I said if we have a breakdown of this demand zone, then definitely we want to be seeing that move has a bearish signal, after which we're going to be waiting for confirmation to join the decline. And what has happened here is more or less tending towards a bearish momentum, as we finally saw a breakdown of that demand zone in the later part of last week's trading session, stroke the early hours of this week. Now let's scale down to the 1 hour time frame, where we want to see how participants in this market has been relating to this demand zone here, and we're going to be using the structure we have here to determine if we are going to continue to sell. So scaling down to the 1 hour time frame here, hold on a second. Okay, so scaling down to the 1 hour time frame, remember this is the demand zone we identified on the daily time frame. So we have the demand zone here, and what we noticed during the later part of last week's trading session was a significant breakdown of this demand zone here. So what do we have right now? So we have an impulsive move breaking down that demand zone to the downside. In fact, throughout last week we saw this scenario here. Price broke down the demand zone and pushed price right into the $10,800 level. And what has been happening since the beginning of the week is quite interesting. We can see how participants in this market has been caught within a consolidation phase right within the $11,000 level and the $10,800 area. So we can see we have a consolidation phase, hereby giving us a clue of an indecision in the market right now. So with the current structure we have here right now, it's an indecision. What do we want to be looking out for during the New York session today? So the first thing we want to be doing here is to identify the channel here, and the only way to do that is to go down to the 15 minutes time frame. Is to go down to the 15 minutes time frame, and we look out for, identify this channel here and bring out our line chart. What do we see? We can see we have somewhere around the $10,970 area, which I want to be labeling for the sake of clarity. So we have the $10,970 level. We have it here. So this is our resistant level of that channel. Then we also have another one here at the $10,900 area. So let's label this area too for the sake of clarity. So we have the $10,900 and we have it right here. So we can see since the beginning of the week, price has been caught within the channel. So what we want to be doing right now is to wait for a signal to happen. And how do we know if a signal has happened? Well, what we want to be looking forward to is a breakout of the structure. So the signal could either come in form of a breakout of the $10,970 area to the upside, or we could be having a breakdown of the $10,900 to the downside. So that's the signal we are going to be looking forward to. And remember, if we cite a signal like this, we don't want to get too excited, as we want to wait for price action to give us further confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of structure. So when we have a retest of structure, we want to see this as a confirmation to join the rally to the upside. So that's the first scenario we are looking forward to on the US tech. Then the second scenario is if we cite a breakdown of the $10,900 level, then a retest of structure will give us a confirmation to join the decline to the downside. So I want to share a better insight into the signals I'm explaining here. So now, considering the long-term bearish momentum we have here on the US tech and citing the breakdown of this demand zone, remember we had this breakdown of the structure here last week, giving us that bearish signal. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we cite a breakdown of structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back and do a retest of that structure with the intention of trending to the downside, as the current structure is telling us. So if a breakout of the $10,970 area happens during the New York session today and a retest of structure happen, I want to be seeing this move as a retracement of that previous impulse leg that we identified here. So if this is going to be happening, I want to see this as a retracement phase of that impulse leg. And if that is going to be the retracement phase of that impulse leg, we want to be looking forward to looking at the golden zone area as our take profit target. And where is our golden zone area? Our golden zone area is somewhere between the 50 and the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg. So if we bring out our Fibonacci retracement and connect the impulse leg, we have our golden zone area around this point. So let's see this as a TP target zone for buy and also a sell window for sellers. So let me place this right in the box. So I have this, then I make this a little bit smaller, and then let me make it green, and I would love to make this one yellow so that we can see it clearly. So we have the structure here. So what I'm simply saying here is this: if price breaks out of this channel to the upside, I want to see this as a retracement phase of that previous impulse leg that we have here. So we're going to be looking at our take profit target anywhere between the $11,000 area and the $11,200 area. So what this simply means is that we will be looking at a take profit, a profit of a minimum of, let's say, 80 pips thereabout to a maximum of about 220 pips. So that's the first scenario we are looking forward to here on the US tech. So breakout retest of structure gives us a signal to join a rally. That's a counter trend trade. We want to join it right into the take profit target area here. And one thing we want to be seeing here, if price gets into this area, is a reversal pattern. Remember, this area also lines up with a structure that was broken last week. Remember, we had $11,200 area which was broken last week. We had the structure here broken, so there is a likelihood that price will come back into the structure to reject that area to push price to the downside. So that is how we are going to be looking at the US tech for today. Then for the selling opportunity here, that is if price breaks down the $10,900 level, if we have a breakdown of the $10,900 level like this, then a retest of structure, like I said, will give us a confirmation to join the decline. So if that happens, we have the $10,000 level, $10,900 level as an area we want to be looking for, retest of structure to join the decline to the downside. So these are the scenarios we want to be looking out for on the US tech for today. If you have any questions regarding what I've just explained so far, feel free to drop your comments, your inquiries in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. So that is that on the US tech. Let's see if there are any questions before I move on to the next pair. All right. So I think at this point we just move on to the next pair, and we want to be looking at the major pairs. So now the first major pair we are going to be looking at is the USDJPY. And before I go into the details of the USDJPY, I was able to pull out events that is likely going to be driving price movement for this week, and let's see what it tells us. So for this week, we have a series of events that is likely going to be affecting the USD. We have one on Monday. Today, in the next 2 hours, we are going to be seeing the ISM manufacturing PMI for the month of September coming up in 2 hours time. And then on Wednesday, we have the ADP employment change. We have the ISM services. And then on Friday, we have the almighty non-farm payroll. So we can see we have a series of events that is likely going to be affecting the USDJPY for this week. Hence, we want to be preparing ourselves towards this direction. So let's go into the chart and let's look at what the market structure is giving us from a technical standpoint. While on a daily time frame, it is very obvious that price action has been on a very strong bullish momentum, as we can see here, as price has continued to respect this bullish trend line, and you can see what has been happening in the last 5 months now. And one interesting thing happened in the month of July. We saw this bearish move to respect that bullish trend line, whereby evolving into a double bottom structure. Then we had a breakout of the neckline at the 135 Japanese yen to signal that strong bullish momentum we witnessed in the last 2 months. So now something interesting happened here. As soon as price got into the 145.900 area, we started seeing selling pressure around this area. So we can see since the beginning of the month of September, every attempt by the buyers to push price right above this area was met with stiff resistance from the sellers to give us a clue into the strength of the sellers at that point in the market. So with the current structure here, let's scale down to the 4 hours time frame so that we can see things more clearly. So we can see that we had a very hold on a second, sorry about that. No. So we can see here that the 145.900 area has been a very strong selling niche for participants in this market here on the 4 hours time frame. And during the course of last week's trading session, we were actually looking forward to selling momentum from this area. But something interesting happened last week. We saw our price was caught within a channel right around the supply zone we identified here on the 4 hours time frame. So during the course of last week's trading session, we saw our participants in this market was caught within an indecision phase, as they probably waiting for a catalyst that is likely going to be pushing price in the appropriate direction, which we don't know yet. So in that regard, I was able to identify the channel right between the 145 Japanese yen level and the 144.200 level area, where I said I want to be looking out for a signal in the form of a breakout or breakdown of the structure. So we could either have a breakdown of the structure in such a way that price breaks down the 144.200 area, a retest of that level, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame that will support a trend continuation to the downside. So that is one scenario we want to be looking forward to for this week. Then the other scenario is that if a breakout of the 145 Japanese yen level happens, retest of structure, then we want to be joining a potential rally to the upside. So this simply means that if a breakout of the resistance level at the 145 Japanese yen happens, that means we have a situation where buyers have taken out all the sell position at this point to give us that signal. So now if we scale down to the 1 hour time frame and let's see what has been happening since the beginning of this week, well, we can see that we already have a breakout of the 145 Japanese yen level. We can see the channel, we have the resistance point here. So we already have a breakout retest of this level, and when I cited this, I opened a position right above the 145 Japanese yen area, and currently price is running with about how many pips in profit at the moment? 15 pips in profit. And one thing I did afterwards was to move my stop loss to the 145 Japanese yen area. And the reason why I moved my stop loss to this level is just simply to protect my position against any sudden pullback that is likely to happen here. Remember, we are within a strong supply niche, and we saw the sharp move this morning, and this is more or less like a selling pressure, giving me a clue of the presence of sellers still available at this point. So this breakout could likely turn out to be a false one, which we don't know yet. So because of this, I pushed my stop loss to my entry point to protect my position against any sudden pullback that might be happening at this point. So now that we have this scenario and we have the setup already, how do we intend to trade this? And especially for those who had missed out on the opportunity that I took here at the breakout retest of that structure, is market going to give us another chance to join the rally, or is there going to be any rally in the first place? Is there going to be a second opportunity to join this rally? So this is what we want to be looking at right now. So with the current structure we have here, we have a breakout already that has happened. Let's see if price is going to come back and do a retest of this 145 Japanese yen level, and that retest is going to come in the form of a multiple rejection of that level. So we are going to see if price is going to do probably a double bottom structure or multiple rejection of the 145 Japanese yen area to send price go to the upside. And remember, we have the ISM coming up in 2 hours time, so there is a likelihood that participants are waiting for that results to happen to now help in making a decision for this one. So let's see what happens during the New York session today. Is price going to come back, do multiple rejection of the 145 Japanese yen level to push price to the upside, or price will just continue to the upside from this point? So whatever happens today will now determine how we are going to follow up with the USDJPY tomorrow. So this is what I'm looking forward to here. So let's see how price action plays out in the next 24 hours, after which we'll come back here to do a follow-up detail on this one. So if you have any question regarding what I've just discussed, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section. So that is that on the USDJPY. Okay, Timrola is asking if you're going to see AUDUSD today. Well. Let me see. I actually did not plan it for today, but I will try to look at it as soon as I looked at my planned pairs for today. Okay, I will try. So the next pair we are going to be looking at is the gold, and what is happening on the gold. Well, look at the current structure we have on the daily time frame. I think gold was one of the pairs we have been following since last week. And what do we have on the higher time frame? If we look at the current structure we have on the higher time frame here, hold on a second, let me delete this so that we can have a clean chart. So if we look at the current structure we have here on the daily time frame of the gold metal, we can see that the gold has been bearish since the month of March, and as a result of this, I was able to connect the series of lower heights here to give us this bearish trend line, which will be our yardstick for any selling momentum. Which is going to be our yardstick for any selling momentum here on the gold. Now, in addition to the bearish trend line I was able to identify here, we have this key level at the $1,685. And if you look at the key level closely and look at how price has related to that level in the last couple of months, we can see how that level has been a major determinant of price action. Look at what happened here in the month of July. We saw a sharp rejection by the buyers to push price to the upside here. That was the first respect of that bullish trend line, of that key level rather. Then we saw another rejection during the early days of last month. We saw multiple rejection of that bullish trend line, though the momentum wasn't that strong enough, as we saw our sellers rejected the attempts by the buyers to push price to the upside, which resulted into a significant breakdown of that key level during the mid-month of September. And this was followed by multiple rejection, further emphasizing the strength of the sellers at this point in the market. And you can see every attempt by buyers to push price right above the key level was met with stiff resistance as sellers push price to the downside, further emphasizing the strength of the sellers at this point in the market. So going into the new week, we already have a structure. We have a major key level at the $1,685 area, where we want to expect that price might likely come within this area to push price to the downside. However, the current structure on the lower time frame says something different. So in that regard, I will be scaling down to the 1 hour time frame, where we are going to be looking at how participants are relating to the structure, and then secondly, see if we are going to be having a selling opportunity here. Having a selling opportunity in such a way that we have price continue to the downside from this area. So scaling down to the 1 hour time frame, what do we have on the 1 hour time frame? Well, look at the structure we have here, and as you can see, I showed you this area at the $1,685 on the daily time frame, where we saw multiple rejection by the sellers, emphasizing the strength of the sellers at this point. And since then, price has been trading right below the $1,685 area, and this is what we saw between last week and at this moment. We saw this move right to the downside, and price got to as far as the $1,615 level, and what we saw was a retracement phase back into the $1,680 zone. But one thing interesting here is this: we can see that as soon as price got into the $1,675 area, we saw a couple of rejection of this level by the sellers to give us a clue into a possible sell continuation pattern coming in, and this is more or less looking like a reversal pattern in the form of a double top structure. So what we had during the later part of last week was something like this. We saw an impulsive move to the upside. Price rejected the $1,675 level, came back into the $1,665, came back right again into the $1,675 again, and since then we have seen how price has been caught within a channel since the beginning of the week, which is also exactly around the $1,665 area. So one thing I want to say here is that the double rejection of the $1,675 area here is more or less looking like a reversal pattern to me, and whenever we cite a reversal pattern like this, we want to identify a neckline that will be serving as our yardstick going forward. So in that regard, we identify the $1,665 area. As you can see, it has been a major determinant of price action in the past. You can see how this level has been a support level following this reversal pattern here, and price has come back within this area, and since the beginning of the week price has been oscillating right around the $1,665 level. So the inability of price to break right above this area in the last couple of days is more or less a sign that the bearish momentum here is very strong. However, we need to be very patient here as we want to wait for a signal to give us that opportunity, that leverage to join the decline. So now going into the New York session today, what I want to be looking forward to is a significant breakdown of the $1,665 level, which is serving as the neckline of the reversal pattern we identified earlier. So if a breakdown of this channel, of this neckline happens, remember we are not getting too excited as we want to wait for price to give us further confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of the structure, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline to the downside. So this is how I intend to trade the gold for today, or for this week probably, as we continue to monitor price action. So the current structure here is still more bearish, so we'll look forward to that selling momentum in the form of the breakdown of that structure, after which we join the decline at a retest of that level. So that's how we intend to trade the gold metal for today. So if you have any question, feel free to drop it in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. So that's that on the gold, and let's move on to talk about, I think I want to talk about the CHFJPY, or should we talk about the GBP USD? Okay. So let's talk about the CHFJPY. The CHFJPY is a pair we've been monitoring since for the past 2 weeks now, and we are quite profitable on the CHFJPY so far. And one thing we observed on the daily time frame, like I used to mention in my previous analysis on this pair, is that price has been on a very strong bullish momentum. And though we had attempted by the sellers between the month of June and the month of August to push price to the downside, and this is evident with multiple rejection of the supply zone here at the 144 Japanese yen. But something interesting happened during the first week of the month of September, as a significant breakdown of that structure sent price soaring to the high side, leading into price action reaching the highest points price has ever been since 1980. So price hit a peak at the 151.900 area, and what we saw here was a rejection of this area, and we enjoyed this move 2 weeks ago to the downside. We took about 400 pips here to the downside, and since then price rejected this structure that was broken here. Remember, when we cite a breakout of structure, we expect that price will come back and do a retest of structure, which is exactly what happened here. So the breakout of structure happened, price came back to do a retest of that structure, and price continued to the upside here. And one thing we identified last week was this reversal pattern. We had this reversal pattern in the form of a double top structure. Let me show you that on the 4 hours time frame. So we had this reversal pattern here, and we were able to identify the neckline at the 148 Japanese yen level. And one thing we said last week was that if we expect that price is going to come back into the neckline area here, do a rejection around this area to push price to the downside, and that was exactly what happened. And during the later part of last week's trading session, we took about 130 pips before we closed for the week. Now going into the new week, what is going to be our plans here? Well, on this current scenario here, what I did here was to connect the series of lower highs here to give me this resultant bullish trend line. So we have this bullish trend line here, and in order to support that bearish momentum that I was expecting, I am anticipating that price is likely going to break down this bullish trend line to give us a further signal of a bearish momentum, after which a retest of structure at around the 146.500 area will be giving us a confirmation to join the decline. So this is the first perspective I'm looking at on the CHFJPY, selling momentum at the breakout of that bullish trend line. However, if we continue to witness multiple rejection of that bullish trend line, that is, price appears to be respecting that bullish trend line, this might likely lead to a trend continuation to the upside. Remember, the CHFJPY is on a very strong bullish momentum here, and the multiple rejection of that bullish trend line, this temporary bullish trend line, is likely going to be sending price going to the upside. So in order to get a clearer perspective into the current structure, we want to scale down to the 1 hour time frame, where we want to see how participants in this market is actually relating with the structure here. So in order to do that, we will scale down to the 1 hour time frame, and on the 1 hour time frame, what can we find here on the 1 hour time frame? Well, looking at the 1 hour time frame here, we can see that price has been oscillating between the 147.400 area and the 146.500 area, and this is what we have here. Following this impulsive move to the downside, price has rejected the 146.500 area. Price climbed up into the 147.400. Price came back again into the bullish trend line, and with what we are seeing here in the last 2 hours now is more or less like a rejection of that bullish trend line. So if price continues to the upside, we want to buy. Remember, I told you that a breakdown here, retest, will be sending price to the downside. So we've not seen a breakdown yet, so we're still going to be patient on our sell opportunity here, and let's see what is going to be happening from this point. So now, if we are going to be buying the CHFJPY, how do we intend to trade that? Now, looking at the impulsive leg we have here, price came back into the structure. Price came up into the 147.400 area, and we have the scenario here looking more like price is evolving into a reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure. So the double bottom structure will not be confirmed until we sight a breakout of the 147.400 area. So now, to buy the CHFJPY, we need to see a breakout of the 147.400 area somewhere around here. Yes, 147.400 area. I want to see somewhere around here a breakout of that structure to give us that signal that we are going bullish. But remember, we are not getting too excited. We want to wait for confirmations to happen in the form of a retest of the structure. So we look for a retest on our lower time frame, look out for patterns that support a trend continuation, then we can join the rally to the upside. So that's how we want to buy the CHFJPY. And if a breakout of the neckline happens at the 140 Japanese yen area and a retest of the neckline happens again, we want to add more position to this trade. So these are the two scenarios we are looking forward to on the CHFJPY. Either of these two scenarios that happen, I'm very sure we will be on standby to take advantage of that move. So like I said, a breakdown will be sending price go to the downside, and a breakout of the 147.400 will be giving us a buy opportunity. So that's that on the CHFJPY. And then let's see if I can take the AUDUSD from Steamroller before I close the day with the CHFJPY. So on the AUDUSD, this is what we have on the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame, we can see that price has been on a very strong bearish momentum, and this as a result of this, we were able to draw this bearish trend line. In fact, I have two bearish trend line. I have the major trend line here with a thick black line, and then we have the black dotted line, which is the temporary bullish trend line. And if we look at what happened mid month of September, that was last month, we saw this significant breakout of this demand zone. Remember, this demand zone has been holding price supported for quite a while. Since the month of July, we saw price, as soon as price got into these areas, buyers gathered here to buy the Aussie. It came here again, it happened again in the early days of the month of September, before we finally saw the breakdown of that demand zone during the later part of the month of September to give us a bearish signal. And as since then, price has continued to find lower lows and lower highs. Now, from the current structure we have here, that is the breakdown of this demand zone, from a technical standpoint, we expect that there is a likelihood that price will come back to do a retest of that structure in such a way that we could be having a trend continuation to the downside. And you can see price has been on a very strong bearish momentum since the beginning of the year. So a breakdown retest of the 0.6700 level would have made sense to join the decline. But now price has continued to the downside and we have a consolidation phase somewhere around here. So let's scale down to the lower time frame and let's see what has been happening within this area, and also see how participants in this market has been relating to the structure. So we scale down to the 1 hour time frame, and on the 1 hour time frame, what do we have? So right on the 1 hour time frame, let's zoom into what has been happening since the beginning of the week. So since the beginning of last week trading session, we have seen how the 0.6550 level has been a major selling niche for participants in this market. That since last week, we have seen how every attempt by the buyers to push price to the upside from this area has been met with resistance from the sellers, giving us a clue into the strength of the sellers at this point. So now, the week has started here. The week started at around this point. Hold on a second. So the week started here. Let's see where it started this week. So price started the week at the 0.6400 level, and we've been seeing a consolidation phase around this area. So this is where price started this week, and we have been seeing bullish momentum since the beginning of this week. Now, the highest point price has reached this week is at the 0.64600 level, which is around here. So now that we have this mapped out, how do we intend to trade this? Well, one thing I want to do here is to have a key level that will be guiding us for this week. So we should be having one around the 0.64600 level. Let me do that. Let me bring out my line chart. So we have the 64600 area, which falls around here. And if we look into the past, we can see how this level has been a major determinant of price action. So let me give this a purple, and then let's label it the 0.64600 level. So we have this here, and let me place it at the top right hand side of my screen. So that we can see it clearly. So we have, let me increase the font a little bit. So we have the 0.64600 level as my yardstick for this week. So what I want to be looking forward to at this point is this. If we have a breakout of the 0.64600 level, considering the fact that we've been witnessing bullish momentum since the beginning of this week here. So we saw how price started the week here, and we have been seeing bullish momentum from this point. And at the same time, if we look at the lowest point price got to last week, we saw price got to 0.63500 area last week, climbed up into the 0.6550 level, and we can see price was unable to break down the previous low, hereby giving us a higher low at this point. So there is a likelihood that price might want to initiate a retracement phase back into the structure that was broken last week. So we might be looking forward to price come to the upside here. So how do we trade that if that happens? So like I said, going back to the current structure we have here, I'm looking forward to a breakout of the 0.64600 area. Remember, if a breakout happens, we are not getting too excited. We want to wait for confirmation to happen, which is going to be coming in the form of a retest of structure on our lower time frame. Look out for patterns that supports a trend continuation to the upside. And as soon as price moves in our direction, remember this is a counter trend opportunity. We want to be moving our stop loss accordingly to protect our position against any sudden pullback that might be happening here. So if price goes to the upside, that is, if we have a breakout retest of the 0.64600 area, well, I will be advising that we place our take profit targets somewhere around the 0.6700 area. We should be dovetailing to a minimum of about 238 pips, which is quite considerate for a week. So let's see how this is going to play out. Are we going to be having a breakout retest of that structure for this week? And remember, as soon as price moves in our direction, we want to be moving our stop loss accordingly. So that is how we intend to take any buying opportunity here on the AUDUSD. I was able to identify a structure here. So we could probably have multiple entries here on the AUDUSD. So if price continues to the upside, we have a breakout of this bearish trend line, a retest of that structure, multiple rejection of that level. We could add more position to our existing trade here. So that is that on the AUDUSD. That's the first scenario we're going to be looking at on the AUDUSD. Then the second scenario we're going to be looking at, considering the long-term bearish momentum here and considering the fact that the dollar is still very, very strong, we might want to be looking forward to selling opportunities here. And that is going to be, look at this impulse leg here. Look at this impulse leg here. And if we bring out our Fibonacci retracement tool, run it through this impulse leg, and we aim at our gold zone area, we have a sell window here. So you can see how it's important that even if we have a breakout, even if we have a breakout retest of this area and price continue to move in our direction, we want to be moving our stop loss accordingly, because this is more or less another sell window for participants in this market. So it could turn out to be a sell window. So that is one scenario that we want to be looking forward to. That price might come within this area, reversal pattern might happen to push price to the downside. So we need to also get ourselves prepared for that possibility as well. And if I bring out my line chart here and go as far as the 15 minutes time frame, we can see we have higher lows that can be connected to use as a yardstick for trading opportunities this week. So we have a bearish trend line. We can see since the beginning of the week, price started here and price has been respecting that bullish trend line. We can see price has been respecting that bullish trend line. So this bullish trend line could also guide our bullish momentum on the AUDUSD. However, if a breakdown of that bullish trend line happens, well, I want to be seeing that as a bearish signal. So if we have a breakdown of this bullish trend line, then we want to wait for a retest of structure where we want to look out for patterns to join the decline to the downside. So the 0.64600 level is a very significant area we want to be using as our yardstick for the week. So what this key level simply means at this point in the market is that if price continue to oscillate right above this level, we want to be comfortable in our buy position, and if price continue to oscillate right below this level, we want to continue to look for selling opportunities. So for buy position, we wait for a breakout retest of the 0.64600 area to join the rally, and if a breakdown of the bearish trend line happens, and then we want to be looking forward to selling opportunities to join the decline to the downside. And if a selling opportunity comes in, where will our take profit target be? Well, we want to take into consideration this impulsive move to the downside, and we want to use that as a yardstick by projecting it into the future using our Fibonacci extension tool. And if we bring out our Fibonacci extension tool, run it through the previous impulse leg here, we should be aiming at an area between the 127.2 and the 1414 area as our take profit target for any sell momentum. Hold on a second. Okay, so we have somewhere between the 127.2 and the 1414 area for our TP target. So that's that. And we should be dovetailing to how many pips that is. So somewhere around here, that's around between 80 to 100 pips thereabout. So let's see how price action plays out in the next 24 hours. So one thing I would like to say here is that every Mondays like this, it's always very ambiguous. we need to be patient because we need to see the trails in the market. We want to see how participants are actually relating to the current structure we have, after which we want to be using that to guide our action for the week. So on Mondays it's always very slow, so let's be mindful of that and be patient enough to wait for structures to be broken to give us a signal. Then we wait for confirmations before we want to be joining the potential trend we want to be taking for the week. So that is that on the AUD USD. I think at this point I would want to call it a day. Before I do, let's do a recap of what our expectation is going to be like for let's quickly do a recap of what our expectation is going to be like for the New York session. And we started with the US oil, and what is our expectation on the US oil? Well, with the current structure we have on the US oil, we had a huge gap between last week and this week, as price closed last week at around the $79.50 area, but price opened at $80 this week, giving us a clue that there is a likelihood that the bullish momentum could be coming in this week. And then we identified that price has been oscillating right between the $81 level and the $82 area, and we saw a significant breakout of that structure, which gives us a signal of a bullish momentum. So in that regard, we identified the key level at the $82 area, where I said we want to be using as our yardstick for the week. And in that regard, since we already have a bullish signal, we're waiting for a retracement to happen into our golden zone area, where we want to be taking advantage of a trend continuation to the upside. So one thing I want to say here is that if price does not come within the buy zone, what we want to be looking forward to is a reversal pattern. It could happen on our lower time frame, your 10 minutes time frame probably, or 5 minutes time frame, or 15 minutes time frame. We could see a reversal pattern. Then if that happens, we want to be joining the rally to the upside. So that's that on the US tech. Then we went on to talk about that's the US oil rather. So we went on to talk about the US tech. Sorry, let me take some water. Okay, so we went on to talk about the US tech, where we identified this demand zone at the $11,000 area, which was broken during the latter part of last week's trading session to give us a signal of a bearish momentum. And since we had this bearish impulsive move to the downside here, and since the beginning of the week, we have seen how price has been caught within a channel since the beginning of the week. We are looking forward to two scenarios in such a way that we could be having price climb up in the form of a retracement back into the structure that was broken, after which we look out for patterns to join the decline to the downside. That is the first scenario we are looking forward to. And then the second scenario we're looking forward to is a breakdown of this channel in such a way that a retest of the structure will give us a signal to join the decline to the downside. So in order to make our job easier during this week, we were able to identify the channel that price has been oscillating within since the beginning of the week. So we have the area at the $10,970 area, and then we have the $10,900 level. So like I said, if a breakout of the $10,970 happens and a retest on our lower time frame, this is going to be a counter trend trade, and this is more or less going to be a retracement of the previous impulse leg. And if you're a counter trend trader and you're comfortable taking counter trend trades, you could take advantage of this after a breakout retest of the $10,970 area, with a minimum of about, how many pips was that anyway? We had a minimum of 90 pips to a maximum of about how many pips that is, of about 220 pips thereabout. So that is that for counter trend opportunity. And if price continues like that into this area, then we want to be looking out for selling opportunities around this area to join the decline to the downside. And if that one does not happen, that is, if we do not see a breakout of the 10,970 area and price breaks down the $10,900 area, then a retest should be giving us an opportunity to join the decline. So that's that on the US tech. Then we went on to talk about the USDJPY. And on the USDJPY, we've been expecting a selling opportunity on this one since last week. But what happened last week was that price was caught within a consolidation phase right between the 145 Japanese yen area and the 144.200 Japanese yen area to give us a bullish rectangular pattern. And one thing I said here is that considering the structure we have here, the only way we will be trading this is to wait for a signal to happen, and the signal could either happen in the form of a breakdown of the structure to the downside, which might be inciting the sell momentum, or the breakout of the structure to the upside, which might be inciting a bullish momentum. And I told you at the beginning of the session that I took advantage of this trade after I cited the breakout retest of the 145 Japanese yen level, and I immediately price moved in my direction. I moved my stop loss to break even to protect my position against any sudden pullback that might happen. And one thing we noticed during the early hours of today was this sharp rejection of this area, which also gives us a clue into traces of selling momentum in this market. So I want to look at this and be very mindful that this breakout might turn out to be a false breakout. So because of this, I already moved my stop loss to break even to protect my position. So for those who had missed that opportunity, well, we might be looking forward to a retest again. If we price comes back into the 145 Japanese yen level and we start seeing multiple rejection of this area, then we might be getting ready to buy the USDJPY. So that is how we want to trade the USDJPY. A bullish the setup we have at the beginning of the week is more or less bullish at this point, so we are going to be looking forward to bullish momentum right above the 145 Japanese yen level. So that's that on the USDJPY. Then we went on to talk about the CHFJPY, where we were profitable last week on the CHFJPY. We closed last week with about 130 pips. We took this move right from this level, the neckline at the 148 Japanese yen, which was broken and retested. We took it right into this area, which gave about 130 pips minimum on this one. And going into the new week, going into the New York session today, I'm still thinking that this bearish momentum will still going to run, and in that regard I was able to identify a parameter in the form of a bullish trend line here, where I said if a breakdown of that bullish trend line happens during the New York session today, a retest to structure is likely going to be giving me a confirmation to join the decline to the downside. However, if price continues to respect this bullish trend line in such a way that we start seeing multiple rejection, we started seeing buying pressure from above the 146.500 area, I told you that we want to be patient enough to wait for price to break out of the 147.400 area to give us a bullish signal. And if that signal happens, we wait for a retest of structure, that is the 147.500 area, where we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the rally to the upside. So the reason why I said that if price breaks above the 147.400 area, we should be looking for bullish momentum is simply because if we look at what happened last week, we had an impulsive move last week to the downside, and what we have noticed is that price has been rejecting the 146.500 area since the beginning of this week. Price came back, and this could likely evolve into a double bottom structure, after which a breakout of the neckline retest will give us a confirmation to join the rally to the upside. So that is how we want to buy the CHFJPY for this week, but I'm still tending towards a bearish momentum. I still think that price might likely break down the bullish trend line, the 146.500 area, retest that a structure to send price crashing to the downside. So that's that on the CHFJPY. Then we went on to talk about the gold, where I'm looking forward to setting opportunities on the gold here. And one thing we were able to do on the 1 hour time frame, after identifying a structure on the daily time frame, remember we had the structure here, we had the key level at the 1685 Japanese yen $1685 level, which was broken during the course of last week trading session, and in fact retested, and since then price has been trading right below the $1,685 area to emphasize the strength of the sellers at this point. And when we scale down to the 1 hour time frame and looking at how participants has been relating with this current structure since the beginning of the week, I'm tending towards a sell position. So we had this impulsive move last week. Price did this last week. As soon as price got into the $1,675 area, we started seeing rejection of that level by the sellers to emphasize the strength of the sellers at this point. And one thing about the structure here, it looks more like a double top structure, which from a technical standpoint is a reversal pattern. So one thing I said here is that we have a neckline at the $1,665 area, and if a breakdown of that level happens, then that's going to be a bearish signal. Remember, we are not getting too excited. We want to wait for further confirmation to happen in the form of a retest of the structure, after which we look out for opportunities on lower time frame to join the decline to the downside. So that's how we intend to trade the XAUUSD. And then we went on to close the day with the AUDUSD, which was introduced to us by Steamroller. And on the AUDUSD, we saw that the week has started on a bullish note as price has continued to find higher highs and higher lows since the beginning of this week. I showed you here that the week started at around the 0.6400 level, and the highest point price has gotten this week is around the 0.64600 level. Excuse me. And as soon as price got to the 0.64600 level, price rejected that area. So in order to make our job easier for today, for this week, I was able to identify the 0.6400 level, 64600 level as our yardstick for the week. So if we are thinking of buying the AUDUSD, we want to be patient to see a breakout of the structure to happen, after which a retest of that level. If we have a retest of that structure, we want to be joining the rally to the upside. And if price breaks out of this trend line here, a retest of this trend line, because this is more or less giving us has a tendency of having multiple entries. If a retest of this trend line happens, we want to add more position to our existing trade. So that's how we want to buy the AUDUSD if that happens. And if we look at the long-term perspective here, we can see that it has been bearish for a very long time since the breakdown of the structure. And one thing I said here is that we can see how the 0.64600 level has also been a selling niche for participants in this market. Look in the past here, we saw how this level has been a major determinant of price action. It was broken here last week. Hold on a second. During the later part of last week, it was broken, and right now price has come back to do a retest of this level. So if price continues to reject that level, then I have a bullish trend line here, which price has been respecting since the beginning of the week. So since the beginning of the week, we have seen how price has continued to respect this bullish trend line. So like I said, if we have a breakdown of that trend line, then that is a signal that price wants to continue in the direction of the prior leading price action. So if that happens, a breakdown happens, we wait for a retest of structure to happen, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline to the downside. And I was able to identify a take profit target right around the 0.63400 area, which will be dovetailing to at least a minimum of, let's say, 80 pips to about 100 pips thereabout, which is not bad anyway. So let's get ourselves prepared for any opportunity that comes up today. So like I said, today Mondays are always very slow, as we want to be patient to see how participants are actually relating with the current market structure in order to use that as our yardstick for the week. After we come back tomorrow, definitely we'll start seeing momentum coming in. So on this note, I want to call it a day. And remember, do not get excited when price action gives us a signal in the form of a breakout of structure or an engulfing bearish or bullish candle. We want to wait for confirmations to happen in the form of a retest of structure before we want to join the prior leading price action. However, if price does not come back to do a retest of structure, what we want to do, we pass that trade. There are tons of opportunity in the market that we could actually take advantage of. So if it does not come back and do a retest of structure, please and please just pass that trade and look for another opportunity. On this note, I want to wish you best of luck during the New York session today. And I forgot to mention early on, happy new month to everybody. I really wish you best of luck this new month, and I hope that by the end of the month also we are going to be closing with a profitable position. So have a wonderful day, and bye bye.